digital channels. So now we are starting to move into more marketing related terms, right? These are all very much related to marketing. Digital channels or communication channels, that is enabled by digital technologies, right? So for example, you want to advertise on Facebook, LinkedIn, they are all digital channels, because you basically connect with your audience, your target audience, through social networks like Facebook and Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, and so on, right? And LinkedIn. So these are all new channels, right? That became available to marketers since '94. It has evolved a lot. So in the recent past, the biggest spenders on marketing have started moving their money from traditional mass advertising, for example, mass advertising on TV, mass advertising on print, right? Those are no longer, TV is still a major channel to create awareness, but then it has to be supported by a lot of digital technologies and digital channels, essentially, right? These digital channels allow you to connect with your audience instantly, right? It's real time. They can receive updates from your brand page, for example, if they follow your brand page. So this allows brands and companies to reach their prospects and customers. These digital channels are very valuable. That's why Facebook, if you look at company valuations, Snapchat, right, Twitter, although it's not much in the news lately about in the realm of enterprise valuation, but it is still providing a very valuable service, right? And Facebook, LinkedIn, and so on, right? LinkedIn was acquired by Microsoft very recently. So these digital channels are very, very important because they are growing, right? The reach is growing. Earlier I mentioned about 3 billion population. Can we reach the entire 3 billion population in one tweet? Absolutely yes, right? That's fascinating. This was not possible in the traditional world. How can you actually reach out to 500 million people in real time? Very hard, right? Those were based on analog systems, paper based, right? Print advertising, and then of course television advertising. But now internet is a platform even for television. So the notion of subscribing to a proprietary cable technology or a cable system or a satellite system, for example, is very much under threat because of the internet, right? So a lot of other forms of services around television is becoming available for consumers, right? Again, I'm going to refer back to consumerization. This is a great example of how our viewing habits have changed a lot, and it's basically on-demand television these days. Of course, we still have traditional television for news and all the other stuff, but more and more consumption is moving. So if you are spending 10 hours a day or 5 hours a day watching TV, or even less hours, your more than 50% of your time now is on-demand content. That's really what everybody is telling, right? So digital channels are extremely important. So digital products and services, right? What does it mean, right? In my view, every product that we can think of in this world, everything from your cup that you drink your beverage in, right, to the biggest, most expensive product, an airline, for example, right? So an airplane, if you want to buy that. So all of these products have digital components in them, right? Will have digital components in them. So they are going to be enabled by digital technologies, and they will have an embedded digital component, as I explain it, in the product or service, and that provides a new and enriched experience. Just think about buying your $3,000 washer and appliance, right? Washer and dryer appliances. So these washer and dryers are no longer simple ones where you can just push a button, there's one cycle, and so on, right? Some have 10 cycles, some have 24 cycles, and those mean something because they have been innovated by these companies to offer some sort of value. But us as consumers, how are we going to consume that? How do we know which cycle is good for what, right? Are you going to look up a manual? No, we are not going to do that, right? So very, very fascinating, because this is an exciting area, and I'm involved with a lot of companies who are doing exactly this, taking a dumb product, as I call it, and then making them digital so that they become smart. So it's because of the digital component that they are becoming smart, right? A good example that is sensors, putting sensors in your bottles, for example, right? They can tell you how many times you pulled it out of the refrigerator, put it back, and so on. Very fascinating, and that is going to impact our experience on using products and consuming products, right? So we are entering a totally different era of what we are going to see. Digital advantage. So why is every company, governments, countries, and even us, we are trying to become more and more digital savvy? Because there is a huge advantage called the digital advantage, in my view. It's a form of competitive advantage. It stems from the effective use of digital technologies to drive differentiation, and then also deeper relationships with the stakeholders, which is partnerships and even customers, ecosystems. And you can get closer to customers, partners, employees, and so on. And then this advantage is something that is very difficult to imitate. Once you have your digital advantage through the use of digital technologies, and you are able to understand how to communicate through Facebook, LinkedIn effectively, right? You're looking at the return on your marketing investment. So you are developing digital advantage. You're wiring yourself. Interestingly enough, it's very similar to how our brain works, right? Our brain can actually rewire itself based on how many times we do the same thing again and again. So it's recorded by research that about 10,000 hours of doing something, you can become very good at it, right? So you can actually, your subconscious mind actually will take over, and you're doing things naturally even without thinking too much, just like driving, right? So we don't exert much energy while driving, other than the fact that some people may cut you off on the road, right? So but for the most part, we know, our brain already knows how to drive, basically, right? So our physical motions are driven by the brain, right? And so wiring can happen, rewiring can also happen, right? So that's the power of cognitive technologies. So the digital advantage is really stemming from that ability, right, of wiring all our business processes, wiring our products, right, with digital technologies, wiring our relationships through Facebook connections. Now you and I can talk to anybody in the world, any of our significant others, people, family, friends. We can stay connected. Unbelievable, right? So this is such a phenomenon. So having a deep knowledge of how to do this can actually create a form of competitive advantage. So a lot of these companies have digital advantages, right? Airbnb, Uber, and so on, they have significant digital advantage, which is a competitive advantage, right? So companies like Ford, General Motors, Kia, Hyundai, Mercedes-Benz, BMW are also becoming digital savvy. They are now leveraging digital technologies, and they want to create a form of competitive advantage using digital in their products. So a recent agreement with Mobileye, I believe, and BMW to actually provide more services for consumers, enrich the experience of BMW users and owners, if you will, right? Remember, you may have caught this. I said users and owners. Soon we are going to live in a shared economy, right? You can start sharing cars and order the car that you want to actually drive today to work, right? So you can there would be a service. You no longer need to own a car. You are just going to call upon a service. I want a BMW today to take me to work. Tomorrow it could be Porsche, and on some days else it could be Lamborghini and so on. So that's where we are. That's what I mean by digital advantage, and it's a great platform to look at how you want to actually take your company through the future in the next 5-10 years.